In the annals of 20th century fashion, certain names resonate with iconic authority: Chanel, Halston, Lagerfeld. Yet, behind these monolithic figures, there often exist unsung architects whose vision and precision give tangible form to creative genius. Frances Patiky Stein was one such indispensable force, a woman whose career as a fashion editor, stylist, and accessory designer fundamentally reshaped the way we perceive and value the details of style. Though she rarely sought the spotlight, her influence was profound, stretching from the editorial pages of Vogue under Diana Vreeland to the minimalist empires of Halston and Calvin Klein, and culminating in her transformative two-decade tenure at Chanel. Born into the Great Depression and raised in post-war American suburbia, Stein's meticulous eye was honed by a culture that demanded sartorial precision. Her journey began at Harper's Bazaar and Vogue, where she not only styled groundbreaking images, including the historic 1974 Vogue cover featuring Beverly Johnson, the first African-American model to grace its front, but also mentored future icons like Vera Wang. Transitioning from editor to creator, she became the secret guard of aesthetics, first for American sportswear and later for Parisian haute couture. At Chanel, she worked alongside Karl Lagerfeld to resurrect the house's accessories, turning them from mere complements into billion-dollar pillars of the brand. This is the story of Frances Patiky Stein, the quiet powerhouse whose uncompromising standards and architectural approach to design left an indelible mark on modern luxury. Frances Patiky Stein was born in Huntington, New York on Long Island, in September 1937. Official records and obituaries from sources such as the New York Times, the Times, London, and First Post consistently list her birth date as September 21st, 1937, while others, including Wikipedia, indicate September 27, 1937, reflecting a minor but persistent discrepancy in documented accounts. This variation may stem from inconsistencies in family records, birth certificates, or posthumous reporting, common for individuals born before widespread digital documentation. Stein entered the world during a period of profound uncertainty in the United States, as the nation continued to recover from the Great Depression, which had begun in 1929 and led to widespread unemployment, bank failures, and economic hardship affecting millions of families, including those in suburban areas like Long Island. Globally, the year 1937 saw escalating geopolitical strains, with events like the Japanese invasion of China in July, marking the onset of the Second Sino-Japanese War, and rising fascist regimes in Europe under leaders like Adolf Hitler in Germany and Benito Mussolini in Italy, foreshadowing the broader conflict of World War II that would erupt in 1939. In the U.S., President Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal policies were still unfolding, aiming to stimulate recovery through programs like the Works Progress Administration and Social Security. But everyday life for many remained frugal and focused on stability. Stein's birth into this era positioned her early life amid a society transitioning from economic scarcity to eventual post-war prosperity, influencing the values of resilience and resourcefulness that would later characterize her professional meticulousness. As Stein grew through her infancy and early childhood in the late 1930s and early 1940s, the United States faced ongoing challenges from the lingering effects of the Great Depression, including high unemployment rates that peaked at 25% in 1933 and gradually declined but still hovered around 15% by 1939, impacting family dynamics and community structures in areas like Long Island. The region, known for its mix of agricultural farmlands and growing suburban developments, provided a relatively stable environment compared to urban centers like New York City, but families often prioritized practical necessities over luxuries. Internationally, political instability intensified with events such as the Anschluss of Austria by Nazi Germany in March 1938 and the Munich Agreement in September 1938, which failed to prevent further aggression, culminating in the outbreak of World War II on September 1st, 1939, with Germany's invasion of Poland. The U.S. maintained neutrality until the Pearl Harbor attack on December 7, 1941, after which the nation mobilized for war, leading to rationing of goods like sugar, gasoline, and fabrics that affected daily life and fashion choices. For young Stein, this backdrop likely instilled an early awareness of global interconnectedness and the importance of adaptability, as wartime shortages influenced everything from clothing materials, favoring durable, multifunctional items, to media narratives emphasizing patriotism and thrift. Her family circumstances, though not publicly detailed, would have been shaped by these conditions, fostering a grounded perspective that contrasted with the opulence she later encountered in fashion. Stein's formative years unfolded in Huntington on Long Island during the 1940s and 1950s, a setting that offered a blend of small-town tranquility and easy access to the vibrant opportunities of nearby New York City. Just about 40 miles west via the Long Island Railroad or emerging highways like the Long Island Expressway, which began construction in the 1950s. Long Island at this time was transitioning from rural farmland to suburban expansion, driven by post-war housing booms like Levittown, which symbolized affordable homeownership for returning veterans and growing families. This environment provided Stein with a stable middle-class upbringing, where community life revolved around local schools, churches, and emerging shopping districts that introduced consumer goods. New York City's role as the hub of American commerce with Wall Street's financial power, Broadway's entertainment, and Fifth Avenue's luxury retail exerted a magnetic pull, exposing her to urban sophistication through family outings, school trips, or media depictions. The city's fashion scene, home to garment districts and magazines like Vogue and Harper's Bazaar, began influencing young women in surrounding areas, planting seeds for Stein's future career. During this period, Stein's daily experiences likely included typical suburban activities, such as attending local events, exploring nearby beaches, like those on the North Shore, and observing the influx of cultural trends from the city, which helped cultivate her keen eye for detail and composition in style. Throughout Stein's childhood in the 1940s and adolescence in the 1950s, American society imposed largely conventional roles on women, prioritizing marriage, homemaking, and motherhood as primary life paths, reinforced by cultural norms and media portrayals in films, advertisements, and women's magazines like Ladies' Home Journal. The 1940s wartime era saw temporary shifts, with women entering the workforce in roles like factory assembly, symbolized by Rosie the Riveter, due to male enlistment, but post-war demobilization in the late 1940s encouraged a return to domesticity, with government policies and suburban development promoting nuclear families where wives managed households. By the 1950s, this ideal intensified amid economic prosperity, with consumer appliances like washing machines and televisions marketed as tools for efficient homemaking, and educational systems steering girls toward home economics courses, focusing on sewing, cooking, and etiquette rather than professional ambitions. For Stein, growing up in this context meant navigating expectations that viewed career pursuits as secondary or temporary, yet the era's undercurrents of change. such as the publication of Simone de Beauvoir's The Second Sex in 1949, translated to English in 1953, hinted at emerging feminist ideas challenging these norms. Her later career, breaking into male-dominated fashion realms, suggests an early resistance to these constraints, perhaps fueled by observing women's limited options in her community and the contrasting independence portrayed in urban media. Following World War II's end in 1945, Stein's teenage years in the late 1940s and 1950s coincided with a surge in American consumer culture, driven by economic recovery, the GI Bill enabling homeownership, and mass production of goods that transformed daily life. Long Island exemplified this boom, with new malls and department stores like Macy's expanding access to affordable clothing and home items, fostering a culture of aspiration where fashion became a marker of status and normalcy. Media played a central role, with television's rise, households owning sets jumping from 6,000 in 1946 to over 12 million by 1951, broadcasting shows like I Love Lucy that depicted stylized domesticity, while fashion magazines such as Vogue, under editors like Edna Woolman Chase, and Harper's Bazaar, led by Carmel Snow, gained wider circulation, featuring glossy spreads that influenced young women nationwide. These publications shifted from wartime austerity to celebratory glamour, promoting trends like cocktail dresses and coordinated accessories, which Stein likely encountered through subscriptions, newsstands, or city visits. This media saturation not only democratized style advice, but also amplified the importance of visual presentation, laying groundwork for Stein's future expertise in curating total looks, for magazine shoots and brand campaigns, as she absorbed how images shaped perceptions of femininity and success. The fashion landscape of Stein's youth in the late 1940s and 1950s profoundly shaped her sensibilities, beginning with Christian Dior's New Look debut in February 1947, which revolutionized post-war style by introducing exaggerated femininity through corseted waists, padded hips, and voluminous skirts using yards of fabric, a stark contrast to wartime rationing. This silhouette, popularized through magazines and Hollywood films starring actresses like Audrey Hepburn and Grace Kelly, defined elegance with structured forms that emphasized poise and grace. Accessories were indispensable, serving as completers of the ensemble. Wide-brimmed hats for sun protection and sophistication, leather gloves for formality, constricting girdles for shape control, structured handbags like boxy top handle styles for practicality, and pointed toe pumps or Mary Janes for polish. In Stein's Long Island setting, these elements were everyday norms for social occasions, school events, or church, reinforcing the era's meticulous dress codes where mismatched items could signify poor taste. This rigid framework likely sharpened Stein's attention to detail, as she observed how components like a pearl necklace or brooch could elevate an outfit, fostering her later professional focus on accessories as pivotal to overall style. By the mid-1950s, subtle shifts toward youth-oriented trends, like poodle skirts and saddle shoes influenced by rock and roll, hinted at the cultural upheavals ahead, preparing Stein to adapt and innovate in her career. During her childhood and teenage years in the 1940s and 1950s, Stein cultivated a keen sense of observation and precision that became hallmarks of her later work, influenced by the era's emphasis on polished appearances, where every sartorial choice carried social weight. The tightly regulated aesthetics of the time, dictating specific glove lengths for day versus evening, hat styles by season, or handbag shapes by occasion, demanded scrutiny of minutiae, training young women like Stein to analyze how individual elements contributed to a cohesive image. Though no specific anecdotes from her early life are publicly recorded, her career trajectory indicates an innate talent for dissecting style components, likely developed through everyday exposures like watching her mother or neighbors dress, browsing department store windows during New York trips, or flipping through fashion plates in magazines. This period honed her ability to notice subtleties, such as fabric textures, color harmonies, or accessory balances, which she later applied to professional roles, curating shoots at Vogue, styling at Halston and Calvin Klein, and designing at Chanel. Her focus on discrete style elements, rather than holistic garment creation, suggests an early recognition that accessories could transform an outfit, empowering her to specialize in this niche and elevate it to a central fashion pillar. In the late 1950s, Stein embarked on her professional journey in fashion, a move aligned with the decade's gradual loosening of societal rigidities, as the conformity of the Eisenhower era began yielding to the transformative energies of the 1960s. While public records do not detail her exact entry point, possibly through internships, entry-level positions at magazines, or connections in New York's garment district, her trajectory points to a deliberate pivot toward curation and composition over traditional design, recognizing her strengths in assembling complete visual narratives. This period saw cultural shifts like the Beat Generation's rebellion against norms, the civil rights movement's momentum, and the space race's optimism, all foreshadowing the 1960s social revolutions. For Stein, entering the industry amid these changes meant navigating a field still dominated by men in executive roles, but opening to women in editorial and styling capacities, setting the stage for her collaborations with figures like Diana Vreeland at Vogue. Her motivations, though undocumented, appear rooted in a passion for the transformative power of style, honed from her youth, propelling her into a career that would redefine accessories and fashion imagery. Frances Patiky Stein's professional career in fashion began at Harper's Bazaar, one of the most influential fashion publications in the world. Her hiring was a pivotal moment, as it placed her under the direct tutelage of Diana Vreeland, the magazine's legendary fashion editor, who would later become editor-in-chief of Vogue. Vreeland was a singular force in fashion, known for her aphoristic pronouncements, her celebration of unique beauty, and her demand for theatricality in fantasy and fashion imagery. She possessed an unerring eye for talent and surrounded herself with a team capable of executing her often audacious visions. Vreeland appointed Stein to the position of hat editor. In the context of the late 1950s and early 1960s, this role was far from trivial. Hats were still a significant, often mandatory, element of a woman's wardrobe, and their selection for a fashion editorial was a critical styling decision. The hat editor was responsible for sourcing, selecting, and styling the headwear that would complete the looks featured in the magazine's pages. This required a deep understanding of millinery, proportion, silhouette, and the way a hat could fundamentally alter the attitude and character of an outfit. Working under Vreeland was an intense and formative experience. Vreeland's method was not one of gentle nurturing, but of high expectations and demanding creative standards. She was known for pushing her staff to look beyond the obvious and to find the extraordinary. For Stein, this role served as a highly specialized training ground. It forced her to concentrate on a single, powerful accessory and to understand its impact in isolation and in composition. She learned to think about fashion not just as clothing, but as a collection of carefully chosen objects that, when assembled correctly, created a powerful and coherent statement. This early focus on the object would become a hallmark of her entire career. This period at Harper's Bazaar instilled in her a discipline and a sharp editorial eye. She learned the mechanics of a major fashion publication, how to work with photographers, models, and other editors to produce a final image that was both commercially viable and artistically compelling. The experience provided her with a network of contacts and, most importantly, the Vreeland stamp of approval, which carried significant weight in the industry. Her work as a hat editor was, in effect, a masterclass in the semiotics of accessories, teaching her that the smallest detail could carry the greatest meaning. Following her tenure at Harper's Bazaar, Stein continued to build her editorial career with a period at Glamour magazine. Glamour targeted a younger demographic than Bazaar or Vogue, focusing on accessible, practical fashion for the modern working woman. This experience would have broadened her understanding of the wider fashion market, moving her beyond the haute couture fantasy of Vreeland's Bazaar and into the realm of ready-to-wear and mass-market trends. In approximately 1966, at the age of 29, Stein made the most significant move of her editorial career by joining the staff of American Vogue. At the time, Vogue was the undisputed leader in fashion media, the most prestigious and influential publication of its kind. She was hired as a fashion editor, eventually becoming a senior fashion editor, a position of considerable authority. She worked during the tenure of editor-in-chief Grace Mirabella, who took over from Diana Vreeland in 1971. The Mirabella era at Vogue was characterized by a shift away from Vreeland's exoticism and towards a more pragmatic, relatable vision of fashion that catered to the lifestyle of the modern, liberated professional woman. Stein's aesthetic sensibilities, her focus on clean lines, function, and the power of well-chosen accessories, aligned well with the magazine's new direction. As a senior fashion editor, her responsibilities were extensive. She conceptualized and styled major fashion editorials, collaborating with the industry's top photographers, models, and hair and makeup artists. This role required not only a discerning eye for fashion, but also strong logistical and interpersonal skills. She was responsible for selecting the merchandise, directing the styling on set, and ensuring that the final images aligned with the magazine's editorial vision. Her work during this period was characterized by a sophisticated, modern, and uncluttered approach. She was not known for frivolous or overly decorative styling. Instead, she focused on the integrity of the clothing and the power of a strong, confident silhouette, enhanced by precisely chosen accessories. Her editorial work helped to define the look of the 1970s American woman: chic, capable, and elegantly understated. The most historically significant achievement of Stein's tenure at Vogue occurred in August 1974. She was the credited stylist for the cover shoot of that issue, which featured the model Beverly Johnson and was photographed by Francesco Scavullo. This cover was a landmark event in media and fashion history, as Johnson was the first African-American woman to appear on the cover of American Vogue. Until that point, the covers of mainstream fashion magazines in the United States had exclusively featured white models. This practice upheld a narrow, exclusionary standard of beauty and denied representation to women of color. The decision to feature Johnson was a major step forward, and Stein's role in constructing the image was critical. Her styling for the cover was deliberate and impactful in its simplicity. She did not dress Johnson in an elaborate evening gown or a piece of avant-garde couture. Instead, she selected a tailored denim jacket, a simple belt, and a slim strand of turquoise beads. This choice was significant. It presented Johnson not as an exotic other, but as a modern, chic, all-American woman. The look was accessible, elegant, and confident. By stripping away any distracting artifice, Stein's styling focused the viewer's attention on Johnson's natural beauty and presence. The image made a powerful statement that beauty was not defined by race, and that high fashion could be inclusive. The cover was a commercial and cultural success, signaling a tangible, albeit slow, shift in the industry's standards of representation. Stein herself did not publicly campaign for credit for this achievement. True to her nature, she allowed the work and its impact to speak for itself. During her time at Vogue, Stein also demonstrated an exceptional ability to identify and nurture new talent. The most prominent example of this was her discovery of Vera Wang. In the early 1970s, Wang was a young sales associate working at the Yves Saint Laurent boutique on Madison Avenue in New York. Stein, a regular client at the boutique, observed Wang's innate sense of style, her work ethic, and her sophisticated understanding of fashion. Recognizing her potential, Stein approached Wang and suggested she consider a career in fashion journalism. She encouraged Wang to contact her upon completing her university studies. Wang followed through on this advice, and Stein kept her promise, hiring her as an assistant at Vogue. Wang quickly rose through the ranks, becoming one of the magazine's youngest ever fashion editors. Stein's mentorship provided Wang with an invaluable entry point into the highest echelons of the fashion industry. Working at Vogue exposed Wang to the world's best designers, photographers, and stylists, providing her with a comprehensive education in fashion. This experience would later form the foundation for Wang's own globally successful career as a designer. Stein's act of recognizing and cultivating Wang's raw talent exemplifies her role as a crucial, though often behind-the-scenes power broker and talent scout within the industry. By the mid-1970s, Stein had reached the top of the editorial world. Her next logical step was to move from commenting on and curating fashion to directly participating in its creation. She had developed a clear and strong point of view, and the burgeoning American ready-to-wear industry provided the ideal environment for her to apply it. She had already established a working relationship with Halston, Roy Halston Frowick, during his ascendancy in the early 1970s. Halston was a defining designer of the era, celebrated for his minimalist, sensual, and luxurious designs that came to epitomize the glamour of the New York nightlife scene, particularly at Studio 54. Stein's clean, modern aesthetic was a natural fit for Halston's work, and she collaborated with him, likely in a consulting or styling capacity, helping to shape the total look of his collections. In 1976, Stein made a formal and decisive career change, leaving her high-profile position at Vogue and Condé Nast. She accepted a role at Calvin Klein, another pillar of American minimalism. Her title was design director. This was a significant move, taking her from the world of media into the corporate structure of a design house. At Calvin Klein, her role was to work directly with Klein and his teams to guide the design and development of the brand's collections. Her editorial background gave her a unique perspective. She understood not only design, but also how that design would translate into an image and how it would be perceived by the public and the press. She brought her exacting standards and her editor's eye to the design process, focusing on fabrication, fit, and functionality. Her work at Calvin Klein coincided with the brand's explosion in popularity. Klein was building an empire based on a vision of clean, modern, and subtly provocative American style. Stein's contribution was to help refine and codify this aesthetic, ensuring that every piece from the famous designer jeans to the tailored sportswear and coats adhered to a strict standard of quality and minimalist elegance. This period was crucial in her development as it completed her transition from an observer and critic of fashion to a creator and producer. It was this direct experience in product design and brand management that perfectly positioned her for the most defining role of her career. In the early 1980s, the House of Chanel represented a historic but stagnant luxury brand, having diminished in influence following the passing of its founder, Gabrielle Coco Chanel, on January 10, 1971. During the decade after her death, the label experienced a decline in cultural significance and innovative drive, with collections that adhered closely to past designs without adapting to evolving fashion trends or consumer preferences. The brand's ready-to-wear lines, perfumes, and accessories retained prestige among loyal customers, but failed to attract younger demographics or compete with emerging luxury competitors like Yves Saint Laurent or Gucci, which were pushing boundaries in contemporary style. This period of inertia stemmed from a conservative management approach under Alan Wertheimer and his family, who owned the company and prioritized preserving Coco Chanel's legacy over bold reinvention, resulting in stagnant sales and reduced visibility in global media. The need for revitalization became evident as the luxury market expanded amid economic growth in the West, prompting the owners to seek a creative leader capable of injecting new energy while honoring the house's heritage. In 1983, Chanel's ownership made a pivotal strategic move by appointing German designer Karl Lagerfeld as the artistic director, aiming to restore the brand's prominence in the international fashion landscape. Lagerfeld, already renowned for his work at Chloé and his freelance designs, brought a fresh perspective informed by his encyclopedic knowledge of fashion history and his flair for cultural commentary. Upon joining, he initiated a comprehensive overhaul, playfully deconstructing and reassembling Chanel's signature elements, such as the tailored tweed suits inspired by menswear, the versatile little black dresses that symbolized modern femininity, and the layered pearl necklaces that embodied accessible luxury. This reimagining targeted a contemporary, media-literate audience influenced by MTV, celebrity culture, and the rise of globalization blending irony, humor, and high fashion to make Chanel relevant again. Lagerfeld's vision extended beyond clothing to encompass a holistic brand experience, recognizing that accessories like jewelry, handbags, shoes, and belts were essential for building consumer desire and driving revenue in the burgeoning luxury goods sector. To execute this expanded strategy effectively, Chanel required specialized leadership for the accessories division, leading to the recruitment of experts who could translate conceptual ideas into marketable products. Following Lagerfeld's arrival in 1983, Chanel hired Frances Patiky Stein to head the accessories division, tasking her with designing and developing the full range of non-clothing items, including jewelry, handbags, shoes, and belts. Stein's position involved close collaboration with Lagerfeld, who served as the overarching creative force, generating prolific ideas through sketches, mood boards, and thematic directives drawn from diverse inspirations like art, film, and street style. Stein functioned as the practical interpreter and curator, converting these abstract visions into physical products that balanced artistic expression with commercial viability and superior craftsmanship. Over nearly 2 decades until the early 2000s, she acted as the brand's quality assurance expert and stylistic protector, ensuring that every accessory aligned with Chanel's ethos while meeting production standards and market demands. This role demanded a deep understanding of manufacturing processes, material sourcing, and consumer trends, positioning Stein as a bridge between Lagerfeld's imaginative runway presentations and the realities of global retail distribution. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, Stein's methodology at Chanel exemplified effective brand revival, beginning with exhaustive research into the house's historical archives housed in Paris. She meticulously examined Coco Chanel's foundational motifs, including the incorporation of affordable costume jewelry to democratize luxury, influences from Byzantine mosaics and Baroque ornamentation seen in her collaborations with jewelers, the camellia flower as a recurring emblem of elegance, quilted leather patterns inspired by equestrian gear, interwoven chain-link straps evoking functionality and edge, and the abundant use of imitation pearls and molded glass for accessible opulence. Stein's innovation lay in adapting these elements to resonate with the decade's extravagant, logo-obsessed culture, where consumers sought items that conveyed status and individuality amid economic prosperity and the rise of power dressing. Rather than producing subtle or restrained pieces, she crafted assertive, eye-catching accessories that commanded attention, blending heritage with contemporary boldness. Her partnership with Lagerfeld involved a dynamic of mutual inspiration and constructive disagreement. He supplied thematic frameworks and theatrical concepts for seasonal collections, while Stein managed the detailed workflow of prototyping, material testing, and iteration. This synergy ensured that runway fantasies translated into durable, appealing products, with Stein's input often refining Lagerfeld's ideas for practicality without sacrificing creativity. Stein maintained notoriously stringent criteria during her tenure, frequently visiting Chanel's network of specialized workshops and suppliers in France and beyond, such as the Gripois Atelier, renowned for its pot de verre glass technique, and the Goossens Foundry, expert in metal casting for jewelry. These on-site inspections allowed her to scrutinize every detail firsthand, from the precise heft of a metal chain to ensure it draped elegantly without excess weight, to the vibrancy of colored glass stones for visual impact, the audible snap of a handbag closure for user satisfaction, and the texture of metal finishes, whether polished, brushed, or patinated, for aesthetic consistency. This hands-on oversight stemmed from her conviction that imperfections could tarnish the Chanel reputation, leading to a workplace culture of precision where samples underwent multiple revisions. Industry peers labeled her difficult due to this uncompromising stance, a term Stein reportedly resented as it overlooked her dedication to upholding the brand's promise of unparalleled excellence. Her communication was straightforward and forthright. Rejections of subpar work were delivered without ambiguity, focusing on factual shortcomings rather than personal critique. Although this fostered a challenging atmosphere for teams and vendors, it yielded exceptional results, dramatically enhancing the perceived value and allure of Chanel accessories, contributing to the brand's resurgence as a leader in luxury goods. Stein's most profound impact occurred in costume jewelry, where she expanded on Coco Chanel's concept of affordable yet glamorous pieces, scaling them to suit the 1980s ethos of excess and visibility. She promoted oversized, dramatic items that functioned as focal points in outfits, ensuring they were lightweight for wearability despite their scale. Specific innovations included Byzantine and Gripois collaborations, where she partnered with the Gripois house to produce cuffs, brooches, and necklaces featuring large, vividly hued glass cabochons, embedded in intricate, often matte gold settings that referenced historical opulence, but adopted a clean, graphic modernity. Complementing these, she introduced geometric and modernist lines, crafting sculptural items like broad hinge cuffs and collar necklaces in silver or gold-toned metals, with abstract shapes and minimal ornamentation appealing to clients preferring understated power. Additionally, she reinterpreted pearls and chains by combining traditional pearl strands with robust multi-layered chains and medallions bearing the CC logo, merging elegance with an urban, edgy vibe that influenced street fashion and became emblematic of the period's mix-and-match styling. In handbags, Stein built upon the legacy of the Chanel 2.55 flat bag, introduced by Coco in 1955, by refining its construction and introducing variations that boosted sales exponentially. She emphasized sensory luxury, opting for pliable lambskin leathers that softened the structure for a more inviting feel, while perfecting hardware elements like the interlocking CC clasps and braided chain straps for durability and shine. This focus elevated handbags from mere add-ons to core brand identifiers, driving billions in revenue through their status as investment pieces. Similarly, in shoes, Stein revitalized the two-tone ballet flat, originally designed by Coco in 1957, by promoting it as an icon of casual sophistication, using high-quality Capote leather in beige and black for optical leg elongation, making it a bestseller among professional women seeking comfort without sacrificing style. Her influence extended to other categories, including oversized cashmere shawls, with subtle Chanel motifs for versatile layering, and belts featuring prominent buckles with chain accents that accentuated the high-waisted trends of the time, all contributing to a cohesive accessory ecosystem. In the late 1980s, concurrent with her Chanel responsibilities, Stein initiated her personal accessories line under the label Francis Patiky Stein, abbreviated as FPS France, as a platform for unfiltered creative expression free from Chanel's predefined motifs. This venture allowed her to channel her design ethos, emphasizing structural robustness, premium craftsmanship, and commanding forms, into a standalone collection produced in limited quantities. While utilizing some shared resources like gripois for glass elements, the FPS aesthetic diverged toward greater modernism, prioritizing geometry over ornamentation to create pieces with a timeless architectural appeal. From the late 1980s to the mid-1990s, FPS pieces featured expansive, sculptural silhouettes, such as wide cuffs, rigid chokers, and oversized earrings or brooches that highlighted shape and volume rather than fine details, catering to women favoring bold minimalism. Materials included substantial gold or silver tone platings with matte or brushed surfaces for a refined, non-flashy luster, often incorporating gripois' radiant poured glass in subdued integrations. Branding remained understated, with subtle FPS or FPS France engravings that underscored intrinsic value through superior make and design rather than overt logos, contrasting the era's branding frenzy. Distributed via upscale retailers like Neiman Marcus and select boutiques, the line garnered acclaim among fashion professionals and discerning clients for its integrity and wearability, achieving niche success without mass market scale. Production ended in the mid-1990s, possibly due to Stein's intensifying Chanel commitments, but the scarcity has elevated FPS items in the secondary market, where collectors value them for their craftsmanship and direct link to Stein's independent vision. For almost 20 years, spanning the 1980s to the early 2000s, Francis Patiky Stein operated as the understated mastermind shaping Chanel's accessories, converting Lagerfeld's conceptual spectacles into a lucrative empire valued in billions through enduring icons like enhanced 2.55 bags and amplified jewelry lines. Her contributions established a lasting lexicon of luxury items that continue to define Chanel's identity, blending heritage with innovation. Simultaneously, her FPS brand, though shorter-lived, affirmed her as an autonomous designer, with pieces now prized for their sculptural purity and historical significance in vintage circles. In the early 2000s, Frances Patiky Stein concluded her long tenure at the House of Chanel, stepping down from her position as head of the accessories division after nearly 2 decades of service that began in 1983. This retirement marked the end of a professional journey spanning over 4 decades, during which she had played a pivotal role in reshaping the fashion industry through her work at various iconic brands including Halston, Calvin Klein, and Chanel. At Chanel, under the artistic direction of Karl Lagerfeld, Stein had been instrumental in revitalizing the brand's accessories lines, transforming historical elements like quilted leather handbags, costume jewelry, and two-tone shoes into modern, high-demand luxury items that generated billions in revenue. Her departure was influenced by a desire for a quieter life after years of high-stakes, creative, and managerial responsibilities, including overseeing global production, collaborating with artisans, and ensuring alignment with Lagerfeld's visionary concepts. By retiring, Stein allowed emerging talent to take the reins, while she transitioned to a more personal phase, reflecting on a career that had not only elevated Chanel's global status, but also set new standards for accessory design in luxury fashion, emphasizing craftsmanship, boldness, and commercial viability. Following her retirement in the early 2000s, Stein chose to spend her remaining years in Paris, the city that had served as the epicenter of her most impactful professional chapter since joining Chanel in the 1980s. She settled into an elegant apartment on Rue de Varenne in the prestigious 7th arrondissement, a neighborhood renowned for its historical architecture, including 18th century hotels particuliers, proximity to cultural landmarks like the Rodin Museum, and its association with French aristocracy and intellectuals. This location provided a serene, sophisticated environment that aligned with her refined tastes, offering discretion amid the bustling fashion world she had left behind. Stein's post-retirement existence was markedly private. She deliberately avoided public attention, declining opportunities for high-profile interviews, book deals, or speaking engagements that could have capitalized on her insider knowledge of fashion giants like Lagerfeld and Coco Chanel's legacy. Instead, she focused on personal pursuits, maintaining a low-key routine that included enjoying Paris's cultural offerings, such as visits to galleries, theaters, and classic bistros, while nurturing close relationships with a small circle of friends and family. This withdrawal from the spotlight underscored her preference for substance over spectacle, allowing her to reflect on a life defined by behind-the-scenes influence rather than celebrity status in a city that symbolized the pinnacle of her achievements. Throughout her career and into her later years, from the early 2000s until 2021, Stein's personal style embodied the same ethos of elegance and restraint that informed her professional designs, characterized by quiet confidence, superior quality, and a subdued color scheme. She gravitated toward a neutral palette dominated by shades of beige for warmth and versatility, cream for subtle luminosity, gray for modern sophistication, and brown for earthy depth, creating cohesive outfits that served as an ideal backdrop for highlighting exceptional accessories, often pieces from her own collections or Chanel archives. This approach mirrored her design philosophy at Chanel and FPS, where she prioritized timeless forms over fleeting trends, favoring structured silhouettes, high-end fabrics like cashmere and silk, and minimalist details that conveyed authority without ostentation. Her wardrobe, later revealed through a posthumous auction of her personal collection, included tailored separates, flowing scarves, and sculptural jewelry that exemplified this refined aesthetic, blending Parisian chic with American practicality. Stein's influence as a tastemaker was formally acknowledged multiple times during her career, notably through inclusions on the International Best Dressed list, curated by Vanity Fair and originally established by Eleanor Lambert in 1940 as a benchmark for global style icons. These honors, awarded in recognition of her distinctive look, often featuring oversized cuffs, geometric earrings, and layered pearls, affirmed her status among fashion elites, alongside figures like Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis and Babe Paley, and highlighted how her personal choices consistently reinforced her professional legacy of empowering women through design. On June 6, 2021, Frances Patiky Stein passed away at the age of 83 in her Paris apartment on Rue de Varenne, succumbing to lung cancer after a period of illness. Born on September 27, 1937, as per some records, though variations note September 21st, in the United States, Stein had maintained her privacy even during her final years, with limited public disclosure about her health struggles. The cause of death was confirmed by close associates, including her brother Mark Patiky, and reported without sensationalism, reflecting her lifelong aversion to personal publicity. Her passing occurred peacefully in the home she had cherished, surrounded by the cultural richness of Paris that had defined much of her adult life. At the time of her death, Stein left behind a legacy shaped by her collaborations with industry titans and her role in elevating accessories to symbols of empowerment, though she had no immediate family mentioned in public accounts beyond her brother. In the weeks following her death on June 6, 2021, Stein's contributions were commemorated through obituaries in leading publications, which highlighted her under-recognized yet transformative impact on fashion. The New York Times published an extensive tribute on June 19, 2021, detailing her evolution from a Vogue fashion editor under Diana Vreeland, in the she worked as a key designer at Halston and Calvin Klein in the 1970s, and finally to her pivotal role at Chanel from 1983 onward, where she revitalized accessories under Karl Lagerfeld. The article praised her as a fashion force whose editorial eye and design acumen helped define eras, quoting figures like Halston, who lauded her precision and vision. Similarly, Women's Wear Daily, WUD, released an obituary on June 8, 2021, emphasizing her role in shaping the aesthetics of multiple brands, including the amplification of Chanel's costume, jewelry, and handbags into billion-dollar icons, and noting her death from lung cancer as confirmed by friends like Jill Kargman, daughter of former Chanel executive Ari Koppelman. Additional coverage appeared in The Times, London, on July 3, 2021, which chronicled her life from birth in 1937 to her Paris retirement, celebrating her as a stylist and designer whose work empowered women through bold, accessible luxury. These pieces collectively mourned the loss of a behind-the-scenes powerhouse, often uncredited in her lifetime, and spurred renewed interest in her FPS line and personal collection, which was auctioned posthumously to benefit unspecified causes, drawing collectors eager to own artifacts of her singular vision. This recognition solidified her enduring influence, ensuring her innovations in accessory design continued to inspire the industry long after her passing. In 2023, the comprehensive essence and precision of Frances Patiky Stein's design philosophy were revealed to the public in a conclusive and authoritative manner through a dedicated auction event. Organized by Sotheby's Auction House in New York, the sale was titled Vision and Virtuosity, the collection of Frances Patiky Stein, held as part of their Luxury Week series in June 2023. This auction comprised 48 individual lots encompassing a curated selection of jewelry, handbags, and other accessories drawn directly from Stein's personal holdings accumulated over her lifetime. The majority of these items originated from Chanel during her own era of leadership in the accessories division from 1983 to the early 2000s, including prototypes, custom pieces, and wardrobe staples she had worn or used herself. This event served as a posthumous showcase occurring 2 years after her death in 2021 and highlighted items that embodied her creative decisions, such as bold geometric forms, intricate Byzantine-inspired craftsmanship, and refined interpretations of Chanel classics. The auction not only cataloged her possessions, but also functioned as a scholarly examination of her influence, drawing bidders from international collectors, fashion historians, and luxury enthusiasts eager to acquire artifacts tied to her legacy. Accompanying the auction, Sotheby's produced a detailed catalog and hosted a public exhibition that effectively operated as a museum-level retrospective, providing an in-depth exploration of Stein's professional output and personal taste. The catalog, a glossy publication spanning over 100 pages, included high-resolution photographs of each lot, historical context on Stein's career, and essays from fashion experts analyzing her contributions to brands like Vogue, Halston, Calvin Klein, and Chanel. It detailed provenance for every item, emphasizing their direct connection to Stein's design process, such as sketches or notes from her archives that influenced their creation. The exhibition, held at Sotheby's New York headquarters on York Avenue prior to the sale, displayed the lots in themed vignettes that mirrored Stein's aesthetic principles, minimalist setups with neutral backdrops to accentuate the piece's sculptural qualities, alongside informational plaques explaining their historical and stylistic significance. This setup transformed the auction into an educational experience, allowing visitors to trace the evolution of Stein's vision from her 1960s editorial work under Diana Vreeland, where she honed her eye for powerful imagery, to her 1980s innovations at Chanel, where she amplified costume jewelry and handbags into symbols of empowerment. The collection as a whole physically embodied her design DNA, illustrating core themes like structural integrity, material excellence, and a balance between boldness and wearability, offering tangible proof of how her understated yet influential approach shaped luxury fashion. The auction lots vividly demonstrated key facets of Stein's design sensibilities, categorized by thematic strengths that reflected her multifaceted contributions to accessories. One prominent aspect was her preference for geometric silver tone pieces, with several lots featuring modernist designs in metal that underscored her underappreciated inclination toward industrial minimalism. Examples included a Chanel cuff bracelet composed of interlocking triangular motifs, creating a lattice effect that emphasized clean lines and architectural form, paired with a corresponding collar necklace that wrapped the neck in a bold, collar-like structure, evoking strength without ornate excess. These items highlighted Stein's ability to infuse simplicity with presence, drawing from her experiences at Calvin Klein in the 1970s, where she developed a taste for unadorned power dressing. Another focus was her expertise in Byzantine-style creations, showcased through collaborations with the Gripois atelier, featuring wide cuff bracelets and elaborate necklaces adorned with oversized poured glass stones in vibrant hues like ruby red, sapphire blue, and emerald green, set within intricate gilt metal frameworks inspired by ancient mosaics and Baroque detailing. These pieces expanded on Coco Chanel's historical influences, but were updated with Stein's modern graphic sensibility, making them symbols of opulent yet approachable luxury. Additionally, the collection included personalized iterations of Chanel classics, such as handbags from her wardrobe, with refined quilted lambskin and chain straps, and two-tone ballet flats in beige and black leather that she had worn, illustrating her hands-on role in perfecting these icons for everyday elegance and comfort. Together, these elements painted a portrait of Stein's holistic vision, blending heritage revival with contemporary relevance. The Vision and Virtuosity auction, conducted live and online by Sotheby's in June 2023, achieved remarkable commercial success with total sales exceeding $1.5 million and many lots surpassing their pre-sale high estimates by 2 to 3 times. For instance, a Byzantine-inspired Gripois necklace fetched over $50,000 against an estimate of $15,000 to $20,000, while a geometric silver cuff sold for $30,000, far above its $8,000 to $12,000 projection. This strong performance was attributed not only to the enduring appeal of the Chanel brand, bolstered by its global recognition and association with timeless luxury, but also to the exceptional provenance of the items as they originated from Stein's private collection, often with personal wear or annotations linking them directly to her creative process. Bidders included museum curators, private collectors, and fashion executives, drawn by the rarity of acquiring pieces touched by the designer herself. The auction's outcome extended Stein's influence to new audiences, introducing her name and narrative to younger generations of fashion enthusiasts and collectors. Through extensive media coverage in outlets like Vogue, the New York Times, and Harper's Bazaar, which framed the event as a rediscovery of an unsung hero in luxury design, this exposure sparked renewed interest in her FPS line and archival Chanel pieces, elevating their value in the secondary market and prompting discussions on women's roles in fashion history, ensuring her contributions received posthumous acclaim. Frances Patiky Stein's professional trajectory exemplified subtle yet transformative impact across multiple decades, establishing her as an architect of style whose innovations redefined key aspects of the fashion industry. Beginning with her formative editorial training under Diana Vreeland at Vogue in the 1960s, where she served as a secret guard protecting creative vision and executing bold photo shoots, Stein developed a sharp eye for aesthetics and narrative that informed her subsequent roles. In the 1970s, she made history as a stylist, an accessories designer at Halston and Calvin Klein, professionalizing accessory creation by turning them into central elements of brand identity, such as Halston's minimalist belts and Klein's logo-driven hardware that empowered women through accessible luxury. Her pinnacle at Chanel from 1983 onward involved reshaping the house's accessories under Karl Lagerfeld, amplifying Coco Chanel's codes like pearls, chains, and quilted leather into bold commercial powerhouses that drove the brand's resurgence as a multi-billion-dollar entity. Throughout, Stein elevated accessories from secondary items to primary revenue drivers and symbols of personal strength, instituting practices like rigorous quality control, archival research, and material experimentation that became industry benchmarks. Her demanding standards, editorial precision, and conviction in the empowering potential of meticulously crafted objects left a permanent imprint influencing how luxury brands approach design, production, and marketing. Even in retirement, and after her death in 2021, Stein's legacy persists through iconic products like the Chanel 2.55 handbag evolutions and FPS geometric jewelry, as well as in the standardized roles for accessory specialists that she pioneered, continuing to shape fashion's evolution.